Good morning to everyone. This tutorial is dedicated to you, innovation facilitator, that are figures that at the present time become more and more important to move firms towards what our society call a change of development models. At worldwide level, today there is a general agreement about the fact that the present development model is not sustainable. So all societies and all stakeholders as all together must put in function some new decisional model able to contribute to this attempt to go towards a new development model, more sustainable. The title of this seminar is Innovate Firms' Economic Model for Overcoming Dilemma between Competitiveness and Well-being Sustainability. In other words, for many years, firms were involved only in improving their competitive position without taking care very much of other social, economical, and environmental issues. So what we are dealing with today is to try to overcome this kind of dilemma. In other words, firms has to find a path that it is able to balance competition and well-being sustainability. Which is the scenario at the present time? We call this present scenario a variable geometry globalization model. In other words, at the present time, we have a strong liberalization of movement of goods, services, capital, not adequately balanced by a universal sharing of rules and rights, which is at the present time the possibility that firms have. Usually, in order to pursue their competitive position, they have two ways. A race, what we call a race to the bottom, that is a competition played through dumping policies, economics, environmental, and social. On the other side, another possibility is to pursue a segmented approach to innovation. In other words, firms look for new products, new process, marketing strategy, resiliency action like recycle, reuse, etc., to counterbalance externalities from above wrong choice. So, which is the resultant of these A and B strategies? The resultant is a negative impact on availability and quality of capital stock, economic, social, natural, and human, i.e. means a satisfaction of people's needs without taking care of what is today the major necessity, stakeholders' contribution to transition towards sustainability. In other words, today it is necessary to pursue a dynamic balance between territorial capital and society's fundamental well-being issues like health, social and territorial cohesion, climate change mitigation, intergenerational equity. So, dumping strategies carrying to a race to the bottom and all segmented approaches to innovation are no longer viable with respect to the transition towards well-being sustainability. So if your role, the role of innovation facilitators, at the present time it is an important role, in the future your role will be much more important. In other words, the role of innovation facilitator, that is educating, advocating and advising firms in direction of innovation, today you have to find a new innovation integrated strategy able to adapt their competitive position to a new scenario, i.e. an integrated approach to innovation, acting on both two variables of competitive index, that is, value perceived by demand on price. In other words, it is not more possible to pursue a competition strategy only looking at price on one side, or looking at which is a major value for perceived, for consumer, for demand. So your role is to accompany firms that need to overcome the dilemma between competitiveness and well-being sustainability. Now, we have discussed what for us is a new model, a new firm model, but first of all, a new society model. And we call this circular economic model for society. In other words, what we propose to you is an innovation integrated strategy for overcoming this dilemma, taking care at the same time of problem of competitiveness and problem of pursue well-being sustainability. So the society has to look at this kind of problem. It is not possible to reach well-being without taking care that in the new cycles, in the future cycle, each stakeholder has to take care of what happens from his decision model to capital, not territorial capital. That means economic, social, human, and environmental. So we can look at an approach in which each stakeholder try to investigate which can be a new decision making process in order to maintain this balance between territorial capital and well-being. For each further cycle to look in the future at the possibility to leave the same quality and the availability of territorial capital also for new generation. Let's see now which is so the decision model, which are the lines of action for circularity, looking only at firm behavior. Firms are this kind of three lines to look for: quality and no homologation of capital stock demand, reduction of negative externalities deriving from decision-making model of firms. In other words, not only firms has to see which is the best capital stock to utilize, but then they also have to choose which are product, process, marketing strategies able to reduce negative externalities that at the end of the cycle, at the end of production cycle, they will have a negative impact on the full capital stock. The third line of action for circularity is to put in operation what we call resilience actions. Which are the tools that the theory of circular economics, or what we call a circular economic system, are possible? Looking at the demand, we have two instruments: renewable and clean resources, so looking at quality. On the other side, there is also the possibility to activate what we call the principle of diversity. That means that when a firm demands factors, it has also to look which is the possibility to find factors non-homologated. So giving the possibility also to each territory to support firms' strategy on the principle of exclusive advantage. The second possibility is for the firm to choose product, process, marketing strategies able to reduce possible negative externalities deriving from their decision-making models and negatively impacting on the full stock of capital. An instrument could be, in general, we can synthesize with this possible word: zero waste. In other words, the firms has to try to be as much it is possible efficient, so not producing any kind of waste. The third possibility that we have to bear in mind, because it can be that we don't find the precise demand of factor that have not effect impact on the new cycles of production. But there is also the possibility that choosing product, choosing process, choosing marketing strategy, we have produced some negative externalities. So at that point, it is important to put in action what we call resilience action. In other words, we can utilize some tools: recovery, recycle, and reuse. But if the first important thing is to change economic model, so to go from what we call linear economic model to a circular economic model, and this is the most important innovation for the firm, in other words, to change economic model, this is not sufficient. It is important also that these three lines of action must be pursued all together, all simultaneously. That's the reason what we say no segmented approach looking for best solution. Why this? In order to act simultaneously on both variables of competition index. So we have to find a way to act simultaneously on these three lines, so we will be able to impact simultaneously on numerator of competitive index and on denominator. In other words, we have to look at these three lines of action as an unicum. But there is also another line of action. Firm, you have to advise firms, advocate firms to change economic model, to have to look at this line simultaneously, but then for each typology of firm, you have to help them to investigate among the universe of innovation that research, university, research center, new model of education can offer at the general level to you. So another big important duty is to identify which is the best practice that can be suitable for each typology of firms. Finally, when we have all this kind of strategy, we have to look now what is happening at global, European, national and territorial level. In other words, scenarios are changing at the present time. So let's say from 2021, 2027 and further, at general level, at global level, we are discussing of new policies. And now we show you just 5 lines, 5 possibilities. At present time, as you know, European Community has put in operation what it is called New Generation EU. In other words, we have over 800 billion euro that can be utilized for what we call the new strategy. Support to member states for investment and reform, launch of the European economy by encouraging private investment, and lesson learned from the crisis that we are still living. The second line at national level is the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Each member state has to put in operation this National Recovery and Resilience Plan, dealing with some specific issue: digitalization, innovation, green revolution, education and research, health, and so on. The third possible policy, and we are dealing now just for fishery and aquaculture, is the European Maritime, Fishery and Aquaculture Fund, the EMFF, that also it provides support from this specific sector. The fourth possibility is the FEAMP National Operation Program. Again, is dealing with fishery and aquaculture sector. And the final is the regional fund, agriculture, rural development and fishing. So, summing up, I believe that this tutorial could be, we hope, could be useful to understand that in the future your role is very central and that you have to investigate a new economic model and try to carry on a new kind of activities for firms that they have to overcome what we call the dilemma between competitiveness and well-being sustainability. I thank you everyone, and I hope that this seminar will be of some utility for you. Thank you very much.